Well, my name is Brady. I am a Chief Deputy District Attorney in the First Judicial District of Colorado. So we cover both Jefferson and Gilpin counties. We are the county that is just west of Denver. So we are part of the Denver metro area. Our office has about 80 attorneys and a little over 200 staff. And so we are going to be talking about stay interviews and informed greatly on how our office conducted stay interviews. Why stay interviews? Most offices do exit interviews. That is really not an unfamiliar concept. Exit interviews usually ask, why are you leaving? Why didn't this work out? What did you like better? And so instead of just exit interviews, we're going to talk about stay interviews. And I think it's also important to do stay interviews because employee mentalities are changing. There's generational differences, there's socioeconomic differences, and we really don't work with just one homogenous population. So it's always nice to figure out what matters to people and why do they stay. So the goal of stay interviews is really retention, to understand why do people stay. It gives employees a voice. It allows the folks who are looking at the stay interview as a whole to find trends in the feedback. And it's also an opportunity to proactively address issues that the office may be having that maybe haven't been seen by management or haven't been voiced clearly by employees. It gives everybody an opportunity to have input. So best practices for stay interviews, always, and this is best practice really for any office, clear communication. Be clear about what a stay interview is, why you're doing it, who's participating, and we're going to walk through all of that. It's always good to make it easy to participate. It's in an office when there's trials and meetings and a million other schedules to work around. It doesn't need to be done within 2 weeks. In our office, we gave a few months for everybody to engage in the stay interviews. You should engage employees at all levels. A lot of times, legal admin have insights that maybe the attorneys don't, or the investigators in the office have insights that upper management need to hear. We want to encourage honest feedback when we're talking about anything in the office. And so the best way to go about uh, getting honest feedback is active listening from the interviewers, making sure that the interviewers know how to ask questions in an open-ended manner so that they are encouraging honest feedback, that there's no judgment, that understanding for the interviewers, it's not a time to convince people to stay or convince a change of opinion or a change of thought process. It truly is an opportunity to listen and document. Interviewees, we want all employees involved. There's really no reason to exclude. I think one thing we could have done in our office, we chose not to, is to distinguish in the feedback forms what type of employee is responding. So you could distinguish, especially in larger offices, between support staff or investigators or attorneys. We just took it all broadly because we thought it would encourage a greater level of honesty if folks didn't expect that they were being evaluated based on what category they might fall into. The interviewers, this is a determination for each office of who would do the interviewing. I think best practice, and a lot of people who have wrote about this, is that upper level management should be doing the interviews. But in larger offices, sometimes direct supervisors are better to do it. We have an employee engagement committee in our office, and these are folks from like all different areas of our office. It's legal admin, it's secretaries, there's paralegals, there's attorneys represented on that committee. And they were really the ones that were tasked with implementing the stay interviews. But we also gave everybody in the office an opportunity to choose who they wanted to do their stay interview with, whether it would be their direct supervisor if they felt comfortable talking to them about all of this, whether they wanted the ear of our upper level management in this setting, or whether they wanted to meet with somebody that was more on their level, and then that would be somebody from the employee engagement committee. But we wanted people to have options to encourage honest feedback. Let's talk about how to introduce and implement. Consistent messaging and communication is really important, but we rolled it out in a number of ways. We had supervisors talk to teams about what these stay interviews would consist of. There was an all office email. You see the graphic to the left. We sent that out via email and in actually multiple forms of messaging from our office so that people would understand exactly what it is. We also chose to tell people what the stay interview questions would be in advance so that they had time to think about it, so that they had time to, some people, especially the non-attorneys, don't necessarily want to be put on the spot in this type of interview. So we sent the questions out in advance. And I think it, again, encourages honest and direct feedback. We introduced the timeline for completing this. We had one person who was responsible for tracking employees that completed the interviews. And so once an interviewer completed an interview, after about, I think it was a few weeks, every interviewer needed to send the list of people that they interviewed to this one employee who was responsible for tracking, just to make sure that we got everybody in for a stay interview. We also used Google Forms, and that's where we had all of the questions. And so it was completely anonymous. There's no room for anybody to put who the interviewer was or who the interviewee was. We specifically had just the questions and left plenty of room for open answers. The interviewer was the one who would type out everything that the interviewee was saying and document it, and then kind of refer back and make sure that they had accurate documentation of the conversation with the interviewee. So these are the questions that we used in our office, and we did it in this order specifically. There's really not, obviously open-ended questions are the best. There's not a lot of bad questions out there. We tried to keep kind of broader questions. And so we started out with, what do you look forward to each day at work? And the interviews I did, some people said lunch, because they have a standing lunch with coworkers, and that is something that they just love. It's their way to, it's their outlet, it's their release, and that's what they look forward to. A lot of people said they like justice-focused work. They liked being able to exercise their discretion and work towards the right thing and do the right thing every day. I think that's probably the most common answer that we got, but it really spanned a broad spectrum. And then, why do you stay here? And this, again, was all over the spectrum of answers. It could be, again, the justice-focused work. It could be the stability. It could be the benefits. It could be you can bring your dog to work. There are all kinds of answers. And then, have you ever thought about working elsewhere? And this is not a question to be afraid of. This is a question that we want people to answer honestly, and nearly everybody is going to say, yes, of course. And so the follow-up questions are, what prompted it? And why did you stay? That informs about the thought process of our employees. We also asked, how would you describe the overall morale of your cohort? And we left that kind of an intentionally nebulous cohort. We didn't say attorneys or like people specific to the interviewee's category, because it might be your trial team. It might be your team that consists of a paralegal, an investigator, and multiple attorneys and legal admin. How do you contribute to morale? What can the office do to contribute to morale? What are your future goals in this office? How can the office help you achieve them? and who have you shared your goals with? And that one we had just 4 specific answers that people could click. But I think all of those help give insight into employees in an office. The feedback, our upper level management kind of distilled all the feedback into specific themes. And some of the themes that we addressed were visibility of leadership. And this is where sometimes it'd be helpful to have to understand which category or grouping of people were answering the questions to see, like, is there a visibility problem in attorneys or investigators or paralegals? But as a whole, it was a theme presented. We heard a lot about people wanting an opportunity to develop in leadership and learn or have an opportunity to develop their own leadership skills in the office. And then we also heard a lot about discovery management. It's just always a huge headache in this job, but something that we need to do well. And so we have addressed all of these. And I think that's the other part of doing stay interviews. You have to be willing to address any issue that is raised. And so discovery management, we've frankly retooled our office and our support staff to address discovery needs. We have plans in the works for leadership development within the office. And then we also went back to our teams as supervisors to get additional feedback. What does this look like? How do you think this should look? When you say you want to see people more, in what form? And so then as supervisors, we went back to upper management, proposed a few ideas, and upper management rolled out a few of those ideas to the entire office at our all office meeting in December. But I think if you're going to do stay interviews, you absolutely have to be willing to address what the responses are asking for. And then I just wanted to give a couple of the resources that I reviewed and that our office looked at when developing the stay interview. I think the Wall Street Journal is always helpful when it comes to management and leadership styles. The one on the right was the 4 questions that should be asked. And those are pretty much in line with the questions that we asked as well. And then there's also the National District Attorneys Association. They came out a few years ago with some sample questions, and I've listed those here. So that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Allie. Have you found that there were any pushback by management or upper management to any of the ideas that were put out?
Not at all. And I think that I guess that speaks well of the management in my office. Our elected district attorney is Alexis King. She is always open to new ideas and willing to consider any suggestion. Sometimes you have to figure out, is it practical? And some ideas aren't always practical, but especially when there's themes presented in the stay interview, I think those are the things that we really focused on addressing. I think the other part of this is you need to be encouraging, especially your middle management, your supervisors and chiefs in the office, to be having these types of discussions with their people regularly. When you are sitting down, like either once a month or every 2 months with my attorneys, I'm asking them, where do you want to be in 5 years? How can we get there? What are you frustrated with? What can I do better? What can upper level management do better? And so I think encouraging these types of open conversations and like at all levels of supervision regularly is probably best practice.